They told you Jesus healed through miracles, that he spoke and the blind could see, that he touched lepers and their skin became whole again, that he raised the dead with nothing but his voice. But they never told you how he prepared for those miracles. Every miracle he performed began the night before, in silence, in rest, in the dark. He wasn't just sleeping, he was entering the mind of God. What if I told you that your dreams were never random? That every night, when you close your eyes and surrender to the dark, you're crossing a threshold your ancestors called sacred. What if sleep was your soul's forgotten temple? The church won't teach you this. They can't. Because if you knew what Jesus actually did in the hours before dawn, you'd realize you've had access to the same power all along. To understand it, you have to return to the nights before his healing began. Not the miracles themselves, not the crowds or the daylight or the testimonies. You have to go back to the dark. Because that's where the real story starts. By the end of this video, you'll never close your eyes the same way again. There was a time when night was not something to fear. Long before alarm clocks and artificial light, before we learned to conquer the dark with electricity and stimulation, there were communities who understood something we've forgotten. They called the night the second sanctuary. Picture this with me. The desert, 1st century. Stars so thick you could see the breath of galaxies, oil lamps flickering in small stone dwellings, where men and women gathered not to work, not to socialize, but to prepare. These were the Essenes, a mystical Jewish sect that lived on the edges of society, keeping ancient teachings alive, while the religious establishment grew corrupt and hollow. They wore white robes. They bathed in ritual waters. They studied scripture with a devotion that went beyond memorization. And they believed something the Pharisees had long forgotten, that every dream was a message from the Father, that every night was a return to Eden. They didn't see sleep as a biological necessity. They saw it as communion, a doorway, a place where the veil between heaven and earth grew so thin you could hear the voice of God without interference. When the sun set, they didn't collapse into unconsciousness. They prepared to meet the divine. And this is where it gets important. Jesus was raised among them, not in the synagogues of Jerusalem, not in the temple courts where priests performed dead rituals for a God they no longer knew. He was raised in the wilderness, in communities that still remembered what the night was for. When he withdrew to pray, he wasn't just escaping the crowds. He was returning to a practice he'd been taught since childhood, the practice of sacred rest. But here's what they don't tell you in church. Here's the part that was scrubbed from history, edited out by councils who wanted a savior you could worship but never become. The Essenes taught that the body sleeps, but the soul continues. That in the realm of sleep you are closest to your true nature, unguarded, unmasked, no ego, no fear, just consciousness meeting consciousness. And in that space, healing happens. Not the kind of healing that requires effort or willpower or worthiness. The kind that happens when you stop trying, when you finally let go, when you trust so deeply that your body remembers what your mind has forgotten, that you are already whole. The Essenes knew this. They practiced it. They taught it. And Jesus, he mastered it. Every single night, before he performed miracles that would echo through history, he entered this state, deliberately, fully, with the kind of surrender most people only experience by accident, in those rare moments right before sleep when everything finally softens. The same stars that watched over him are still watching over you. The same silence he entered is still waiting. But here's the question that should be burning in your chest right now. What did he actually do in the dark? What was the practice, the preparation, the secret that turned an ordinary night's rest into the foundation for supernatural healing? Because if you're one of the ones being called to remember, you need to know this. And in that stillness of night, Jesus began the preparation for his greatest acts. Let me show you something hidden in plain sight. Open your Bible. Any gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, and start counting how many times it says this. He withdrew. He went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place. After he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray, and when it was evening, he was there alone. Again and again and again. The pattern is undeniable. Before every major miracle, before healing the multitudes, before raising Lazarus, before walking on water, before calming the storm, he withdrew, he rested, he prayed alone. But here's what the Sunday school version leaves out. This wasn't fatigue. This wasn't Jesus being an introvert who needed to recharge his social battery. This was alignment. You see, the Greek word used in the New Testament for withdrew is anakorio. It means to retreat. But the root carries something deeper. It means to return to a place of origin, to go back to the source. Every time Jesus withdrew into the night, into rest, into solitude, he was returning to source. He was re-entering the consciousness of the Father. And here's where it gets mystical and scientific at the same time. Because the ancients knew something that modern neuroscience is only now rediscovering. When you sleep, your brain doesn't shut off. It reorganizes, it processes, it heals. During REM sleep, your brain waves sync into theta rhythms, the same frequency mystics enter during deep meditation, the same state shamans call journeying, the same realm the Essenes believed was the threshold of heaven. Science calls it REM. The mystics called it revelation. And Jesus? He didn't just experience it passively, he used it, intentionally, deliberately. Before he healed others, he allowed heaven to heal him, through rest, through surrender, through trust so complete that his human mind could finally get out of the way and let divinity move. Let me tell you about the night before he healed the woman with the issue of blood. The Gospels don't record what happened that night, but if you know the pattern, you can see it. She'd been bleeding for 12 years. 12 years of suffering, shame, isolation. 12 years of being called unclean by a religious system that had no power to help her. She'd spent everything she had on physicians. Nothing worked. And then one morning she heard Jesus was passing through. But here's what she didn't know. The night before, in the hours while she tossed and turned in desperation, Jesus had already entered the realm where healing originates. Not in his waking mind, not in his human effort. In the deep rest where his consciousness merged with the Father's. The body sleeps, but the soul continues the work of God. And when she touched the hem of his garment the next day, she wasn't just touching fabric. She was touching a man who had become a walking threshold. A man so aligned with Source that power flowed from him without him even trying. He felt it leave. "Who touched me?" he asked. Because healing isn't something you do. It's something you become a conduit for. And that conduit is built in the night, in the rest. In the sacred surrender most people never learn. Or here's another one. The night before he raised Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus had been in the tomb 4 days. His sisters were devastated. The mourners were already gathered. Everyone had given up hope. But before Jesus even arrived in Bethany, before he stood at that tomb and called out, "Lazarus, come forth," he had already been to the realm where death has no dominion. Not metaphorically, literally. In his sleep, in that space between human consciousness and divine awareness, he had already walked in the dimension where life and death are just frequencies, where a word spoken from the right level of consciousness can rearrange matter itself. You think he was just sleeping? Not at all. He was preparing the way. Let me ask you something. Have you ever woken up with the answer to a problem you couldn't solve the day before? Have you ever had a dream so vivid, so real, that it felt like you'd actually lived it? Have you ever experienced a healing in your body overnight? Pain that vanished, inflammation that disappeared, clarity that returned? You've tasted it. You've touched the same realm. He entered deliberately. The difference is he knew what he was doing. He'd been trained. He'd practiced. He'd mastered the art of sacred sleep. And here's the part that should make your heart race. He said you could do it too. Greater works than these shall you do. Not because you're special, not because you've earned it, but because the same spirit that rested in him rests in you. The same consciousness that healed through him breathes through you. The same realm he entered every night is waiting for you tonight. But what he entered each night wasn't just sleep. It was a passage, a doorway. And it's been almost completely erased from history until now. Every night you do something you've done thousands of times. You close your eyes, you let go of the day, you surrender your thoughts, your worries, your identity, your story. For a few hours you stop being you. You don't think about it. You just let go. But what if I told you that this act, this ordinary nightly surrender, is the purest form of prayer that exists, not the kind of prayer you were taught in church, not the recited words or the religious postures or the begging for mercy from a distant God. I'm talking about the kind of prayer that doesn't use words, the prayer of absolute trust. This is what Jesus knew. When he said, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest," he wasn't talking about a nap. He was talking about this, the rest that heals the soul, the surrender that opens heaven, the trust that says, I don't have to control this anymore. In the Greek, the word he used for rest is anapausis. It doesn't just mean cessation of work. It means restoration, refreshment, the kind of deep cellular renewal that only happens when you stop fighting. And here's the key. Sleep was his metaphor for the kingdom itself. Think about it. What happens when you fall asleep? Your conscious mind, the one that plans and worries and judges and controls, finally steps aside. Your ego dissolves. Your defenses drop. All the masks you wear during the day fall away. And what's left? Pure being. Consciousness without the story. Awareness without the armor. This is what he called the kingdom of God, not a place you go when you die, not a reward for good behavior, but a state of being you enter every single night, if you know how to approach it. The Essenes taught that sleep was the small death, the practice run, the nightly rehearsal for what mystics call dying before you die. Because in sleep, you release everything, your name, your history, your pain, your identity. And for a few hours, you exist as pure consciousness, the same consciousness that created the stars, that beats your heart, that knows how to heal your body without you having to think about it. This is why Jesus spent so much time in rest before performing miracles. He wasn't recharging. He was practicing surrender. Every night he would lay down his human will, his human fears, his human limitations, and he would say the same prayer that would later echo from the cross. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Not just once, every single night. And in that surrender, something happened that most people never experience consciously. He merged. His human consciousness and divine consciousness became one stream, one awareness, one power. This is the secret they don't want you to know. Because if you realize that the same thing happens to you every night, that you too have access to this state, you wouldn't need the priests anymore. You wouldn't need the rituals or the intermediaries or the institutions that claim to stand between you and God. You'd realize the temple is already within you, and the doorway opens every single night. Let me tell you something you've probably felt but never had words for. You know that moment right before you fall asleep, when your body is heavy and warm, and your thoughts start to drift, and there's this softness, a peace that doesn't come from anything external, a quiet that feels like coming home. You've tasted it. That's the threshold. That's the edge of the kingdom. And most people cross it unconsciously, accidentally, without realizing they're standing at the doorway to everything Jesus taught. But what if you could enter it deliberately? What if, like him, you could approach sleep not as collapse but as communion? What if tonight, when you close your eyes, you did it the way he did? With intention, with reverence, with the understanding that you're not just shutting down for the night, you're opening up to the divine. This is what the early Christians practiced before the church became an empire. This is what the desert fathers and mothers knew. This is what the mystics have always taught in whispers, in shadows, in coded language that only the ones ready to remember could understand. Sleep is not the absence of consciousness, it's the return to it. And Jesus mastered the art of crossing that threshold awake. So let me ask you, are you still here? If your heart is still open right now, if something inside you is stirring, if you feel like you've heard this before in a language older than words, then you're not just watching this video, you're remembering. And remembrance is the first step. But now comes the part that changes everything. Because what if you could enter that same sacred state intentionally, the way he did? What if tonight could be different than every other night you've ever known? Let me walk you through something. Not as theory, not as theology, as practice. Before Jesus closed his eyes each night, he did something most people never think about. He cleared the field. See, the realm you enter in sleep is not separate from the consciousness you carry during the day. It's a continuation, a deepening. And whatever you're holding when you cross that threshold comes with you. If you fall asleep in fear, you dream in fear. If you fall asleep in anger, you marinate in anger all night long. But if you fall asleep in peace, in trust, in forgiveness, your body receives that frequency for 8 hours straight, and healing happens. So here's what he did every single night in the hours before sunset turned to dark. First, he forgave everyone. Every offense, every betrayal, every misunderstanding, every hurt, not because they deserved it, but because he did. Because carrying resentment into sleep is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. It only harms the one holding it. The Gospel of Thomas records something the canonical Gospels left out. Jesus said, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." Forgiveness is how you bring it forth, not as a moral obligation, not as religious duty, as release. So before you close your eyes tonight, I want you to try something. Bring to mind everyone who hurt you today, everyone who triggered you, everyone who misunderstood you or dismissed you or made you feel small. See their faces. And then say this out loud or in your heart: I release you. I forgive you. You no longer have power over my peace. Feel it. Don't rush it. Let the weight lift. Because here's what most people don't realize. Unforgiveness is a chain that binds you, not them. And when you go to sleep holding that chain, you drag it into the holy realm where healing is trying to reach you. Jesus knew this. So he practiced forgiveness every single night. Not once, not as a one-time event, but as a daily cleansing, a nightly release. Second, he released control. This is the hard one, because control is the language of fear, and most of us speak it fluently. We try to manage every outcome. We grip our plans and our expectations and our ideas of how things should be, and we carry that tension into the night, wondering why we wake up exhausted even after 8 hours of sleep. Jesus had a phrase for this: "Your will be done, not my agenda, not my timeline, not my understanding of what's best, yours." This is the prayer of ultimate trust. And it's not passive, it's not resignation, it's power. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you create space for something greater than your limited human perspective to move. So tonight, before you sleep, I want you to practice this with me. Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it for a moment, and as you exhale, whisper these words: I release my need to control. I trust the process. I surrender to what's trying to emerge. Feel your body soften. Feel your chest open. That's not weakness. That's divine alignment. Third, he visualized light, not as a New Age technique, not as positive thinking, as a remembrance of what he actually was. I am the light of the world, he said. Not I have light, not I reflect light. I am. And so are you. So here's the practice. As you lay in bed tonight, in the quiet dark, I want you to close your eyes and imagine this: a golden light rising from your heart, warm, soft, alive. See it expand with every breath, filling your chest, your throat, your head. Let it pour down into your belly, your legs, your feet, until your whole body is glowing from within. And then hear these words, not from me, but from the deepest part of yourself. I am light. I am whole. I am loved. This isn't visualization for manifestation. This is remembrance. You're not creating something new. You're remembering what's always been true. And when you fall asleep holding this awareness, your body receives it as instruction. Your cells listen. Your nervous system recalibrates. Your consciousness aligns with truth instead of fear. This is what Jesus did every single night, and it's why his presence felt like medicine to everyone who came near him. He wasn't special. He was aligned. Now here's the final piece of the practice. Right before sleep, as your eyes grow heavy and your thoughts begin to drift, speak this prayer, not as a request, as a declaration. Father, into your hands I rest my spirit. Let those words be the last thing your conscious mind holds, not your to-do list, not your worries, not your plans for tomorrow. Just trust, pure, complete, childlike trust. And then let go. If something inside you just softened while I was speaking, if your breathing changed, if you felt your shoulders drop or your jaw unclench, that's not coincidence. That's remembrance. Your body knows this practice. Your soul has done it before. In lifetimes you don't consciously remember. In temples that no longer exist. In mystery schools that were burned and buried and erased. But the memory lives in you. And when you practice this tonight, you're not learning something new. You're reclaiming something ancient, so let it mark you. If you feel this frequency alive in your chest right now, leave a small sign in the comments below. Type these 3 words, I am awakening. Something simple, something true. Let others know they're not alone in remembering. Because the real miracle didn't happen when he woke up. It happened while he slept. In that moment of absolute surrender, absolute trust, absolute alignment, heaven and earth became one, and the body, without effort, without striving, without trying, simply remembered how to be whole. There's a law most people don't know exists, not a law written in scripture, not a law enforced by governments, a law written into the fabric of reality itself. Consciousness precedes form. Let me say that again. Consciousness precedes form. Your body is not a machine that generates thoughts. It's the opposite. Your body is a reflection, a physical manifestation of the consciousness you hold. And here's the terrifying, beautiful truth. Every cell in your body is listening to you, not to your words, not to your intentions, to your state. When you fall asleep in fear, your body receives the instruction, we are unsafe. Conserve energy, shut down non-essential systems, prepare for threat, and your immune system weakens, your inflammation rises, your nervous system stays locked in survival mode. But when you fall asleep in trust, in peace, in the awareness of your true nature, your body receives a completely different instruction. We are safe, we are whole, we are loved, heal. And it does, not because you earned it, not because you're worthy of it, because that's what bodies do when consciousness aligns with truth. This is what Jesus understood at a level most people never reach. He knew that the body obeys consciousness, that miracles aren't violations of natural law. They're expressions of a higher law most people never access. When he said to the paralyzed man, "Rise, take up your bed and walk," he wasn't commanding the man's muscles. He was commanding the man's consciousness. He was speaking to the level of awareness that controls the body, the level most people only touch in deep sleep, in prayer, in moments of absolute surrender. And the man's body obeyed, not because Jesus had magic powers, but because he had mastered the art of alignment. And part of that mastery, maybe the most important part, was what he did every single night. He fell asleep in the consciousness of the kingdom, not in fear, not in doubt, not in separation, in oneness, in wholeness, in the awareness that the Father and he were not two separate beings, but one stream of consciousness expressing itself through a human form. And when you sleep in that state, your body heals. Let me show you how this works. During deep sleep, your body goes into full repair mode. Your brain clears out toxins. Your cells regenerate. Your immune system strengthens. Hormones rebalance. Inflammation decreases. Science has documented all of this. But here's what science is only beginning to understand. The quality of that healing is directly linked to the consciousness you carry into sleep. If you fall asleep holding stress, your cortisol stays elevated. Your body never fully enters the parasympathetic state where deep healing happens. But if you fall asleep in peace, real peace, not forced positivity, your nervous system downregulates completely. Your heart rate variability increases. Your cells receive the signal that it's safe to heal. This is why Jesus' miracles felt effortless. He wasn't straining. He wasn't trying. He was simply allowing the natural order of a higher consciousness to express itself through his body. And he built that capacity every single night, in the hours when the world was sleeping and he was communing with the realm where healing originates. There's a story in the Gospel of Mark that most people read too quickly. Jesus is on a boat with his disciples. A storm rises, violent, terrifying, waves crashing over the sides. These are experienced fishermen, and even they think they're going to die. And where's Jesus? Asleep, in the stern of the boat, on a cushion, completely at peace while chaos rages around him. They wake him up, panicked. "Teacher, don't you care that we're perishing?" And he gets up, still half in that liminal state between sleep and waking, and he speaks to the storm the way you'd speak to an overexcited child. "Peace, be still." And the wind stops. The waves flatten. Instant calm. The disciples are terrified, more terrified than they were of the storm. "Who is this man," they whisper, "that even the wind and the sea obey him?" But here's what they didn't understand. Jesus didn't control the storm. He simply remained in a state of consciousness where storms have no power. He carried that state from his sleep into his waking. He didn't break the connection. He didn't shift into fear. He stayed aligned, and reality reorganized itself around his consciousness. This is the mystery. This is the secret they don't teach in seminaries. That the external world, your health, your circumstances, even the physical elements, responds to consciousness. And the consciousness you hold in sleep becomes the foundation for everything you experience when you wake. So let me ask you something. What consciousness are you falling asleep in tonight? Are you scrolling your phone until your eyes blur, filling your mind with anxiety and outrage and comparison? Are you replaying every mistake, every regret, every fear about tomorrow? Or are you going to do what he did? Release, forgive, surrender, trust, and fall asleep in the awareness that you are held, you are loved, you are already whole. Because if this truth feels alive in you right now, if your spirit is resonating with this frequency, if something deep in your chest is saying yes, then whisper it. Say yes in your heart. Let it ripple through you. Because every yes adds to the collective field. Every remembrance strengthens the grid. Every soul that wakes up to this truth makes it easier for the next one to remember. Jesus called it the kingdom, the field of consciousness where healing, miracles, and divine order are the natural state, and you enter it every single night. The question is, are you entering it consciously or unconsciously? Are you dragging fear and chaos across the threshold? Or are you crossing it the way he did, clean, clear, surrendered, and whole? Because the real miracle isn't what happens while you sleep. It's who you become when you wake. And in that space of sacred rest, in that threshold between human and divine, the one who sleeps and the one who heals are the same. Let me tell you something that will sound impossible until you experience it. Every dream you've ever had is God speaking in the language of your soul. Not some dreams, not the significant ones. Every single one. Even the weird ones, even the mundane ones. Even the ones you forget 3 seconds after waking. They're all messages, symbols, metaphors, living parables written in the code your subconscious understands better than any spoken language. The ancients knew this. In the Bible, God speaks to people in dreams more often than any other way. Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Daniel, Solomon, Mary, Joseph again. Dreams weren't dismissed as random neural firings. They were treated as revelation, as direct communication from the divine. And Jesus, raised in a tradition that honored dreams as sacred, understood something most people today have completely forgotten. That the realm you enter in sleep is not less real than the waking world. It's more real, because in sleep you're no longer filtered through the ego's limited perception. Your consciousness meeting consciousness, soul meeting source. And in that meeting, the same creative power that spoke galaxies into existence is speaking to you. Every single night. But here's where it gets wild. Jesus didn't just receive dreams. He walked awake in the same realm most people only visit unconsciously. Let me explain. There's a state mystics throughout history have described. Buddhists call it Rigpa. Sufis call it wakefulness in sleep. Hindu yogis call it Yoga Nidra. It's the ability to remain conscious while the body sleeps, to cross the threshold into the dream realm without losing awareness, to exist simultaneously in two states, the body at rest and the soul fully awake in the dimension where thought becomes form instantaneously. This is what Jesus mastered. This is why his miracles felt effortless, because he wasn't operating from the waking, limited, separate human consciousness. He was operating from the dream consciousness, the realm where a word spoken becomes reality, where imagination and manifestation are the same act, where separation between creator and creation dissolves completely. When he said, "Let there be light," to a blind man's eyes, he was speaking the same language God spoke in Genesis, the language of pure consciousness creating form. And he could do it because he'd learned to stay awake in the realm where that language is the only one spoken. Think about your dreams for a moment. In a dream, you can fly. You can walk through walls. You can be in two places at once. You can speak to the dead. You can heal instantly. Time bends. Space collapses. Logic dissolves. Not because the rules are broken, but because you're operating in a dimension where different rules apply. Higher rules. The rules of consciousness itself.